Greetings everyone. My team that consists of Joanna, Naveen, and I will be presenting on airport sustainability, a review of measurement indicators and reporting practices. These are the following content that my team and I will be covering over the span of the presentation. First, allow me to bring you through the introduction of the presentation. The ongoing increase in passenger traffic and freight demand will equate to more airports planning to expand or build. As a result, these developments within the aviation sector have raised concerns on sustainable developments and how the growth of aviation has potential negative implications on the society and environment. The monitoring of sustainability management begins with the measurement of indicators, followed by the reporting of sustainable performance. There is a need to recognize that airports practicing sustainable reporting do not equate to having a better sustainable performance than those that are not reporting. Based on the team's research, there was a lack of coordination in terms of sustainable indicators that are employed by all airports. Hence, it is crucial for the research topic to be studied for airports to understand the most critical indicators to enhance their sustainable management. Furthermore, sustainability reporting acts as a benchmarking tool to allow airports to assess their performance against its competitors and understand its market position. Airports will be able to identify areas where it is not performing ideally and explore the causes for the inefficiencies that may result in higher costs. Two research questions were developed in this project. By the end of the presentation, we'll be able to find out what is the standardized sustainable framework that could be employed by airports to contribute to their management in sustainability, and what are the key indicators that are critical for airports to focus on for an efficient sustainability measurement and reporting practice. After gathering expert opinions, an analysis will be carried out to determine if the established hypothesis proves that even with fewer than 48 indicators, it is sufficient to measure an airport's sustainability reporting performance. With the null hypothesis stating that 48 indicators will be ideal, and an alternate hypothesis stating that less than 48 indicators will be sufficient or ideal to measure a reporting performance of an airport's sustainability. Henceforth, recommendations will be provided on how airports can strategize to deprioritize indicators with a lower weightage while focusing on others that possesses a higher weightage. The use of critical indicators will help airports to stay committed and improve their sustainability performance. Next, I'll be explaining on the key details that is relevant to the study. So what is sustainability? As stated from the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, it is the ability to meet contemporary needs of the current generation without compromising the ability of future generations to achieve their needs. In the sustainability framework, it comprises of three key dimensions: environmental, social, and economical. To explain further, environmental is the protection of the environment through the efficient use of natural resources and deployment of renewable resources. Social is the safeguard of the society's well-being, standard of living, quality of life through reducing unemployment, poverty, and pollution. Finally, for economical is the maintenance of stable levels of economic growth and employment to generate sustainable development. The following illustration depicts on how sustainable management flows through the three dimensions established by GRI. From the dimensions, there are various indicators that are identified. With the indicators, key metrics will help to build on the indicators and give instructions on what is needed to be calculated. Finally, with the results from the matrix, airports can quantify its performance and report on them. To elaborate the concept of GRI, it is closest to establishing a standardized sustainability measurement and reporting technique for all airports. Also, reporting the impact of activities in a systematic and structured manner that is transparent to its stakeholders. GRI comprises three series of standards, namely universal, sector, and topic standards. Aside from the GRI format that was shown previously, where it can be used sector or industry-wide, there is an airport-specific sector that is known as GRI-G for Airport Operator Sector Disclosure. It has a total of 48 indicators spanning across the three dimensions. All 48 indicators have their own topic standards with specific requirements and recommendations to guide airports on its measurement and reporting. With various authors having different methods used for weighting of sustainability indicators, the following shows the methods used to derive a weightage for indicators. First, the equal weightage. Indicators are assigned with the same weight. Secondly, benefit of doubt with weights coming from statistical data and specific characteristics. Analytical hierarchy process, combining math and psychology to organize and analyze complex decisions. And lastly, weights aggregation using expert judgment, relying on inputs from respondents and their judgments. Next, I'll be passing on to Navin to share more on the methodology and results analysis sections.
Thanks, Joanne. Now I'll bring you guys through the methodology portion of our research. So this will be a summarized flow of our methodology. As mentioned by Joanne, there are 48 GRI indicators, and we have planned for these indicators to be reviewed by experts through the use of 2 questionnaires. Upon receiving the results, we will go through a process of calculating the mean of the result for each indicator and dimension. To note, for mean observed to be below the threshold of 7 will be deemed as least important and eliminated from the list of indicators. With the finalized list of indicators, the weighted average index will be tabulated to understand the relative importance of these indicators. Lastly, the indicators will be applied onto 4 selected airports to compare the differences in airport sustainability performance with the new list of indicators. There are 3 processes involved in the review of the 48 GRI indicators. Firstly, the questionnaires. We have 2 questionnaires in total. The first questionnaire will be to review each indicator between 1 to 10 on the level of importance, from 1 being the lowest in importance to 10 being extremely important. While for the second part of the questionnaire, participants are expected to distribute a weightage on a scale point of 100 for the 3 dimensions. As our literature review suggested that the size of the experts should be between 19 to 400, we were able to gather 20 experts to review our indicators. Secondly, the process of calculating the mean. The average of each indicator responses from 1 to 10 will be calculated in order to execute the next step, which is the elimination of least important indicators. As suggested by our literature review, that there is a common threshold of 7 set for the process of indicator screening. Hence, for indicators that have achieved mean scores below 7 were eliminated from the set of indicators. The questionnaire mentioned in the previous slide was planned and executed between 1st March to 30th April 2022. And all of our experts were chosen with the following criteria. Firstly, they must be working within an aviation industry. Secondly, they should at least possess 5 years of experience in the aviation industry. Lastly, they should be well versed with the research topic on airport sustainability. As you may have heard the term weighted average index being used multiple times in our methodology, a weighted average index is a numerical value that is used to differentiate the different level of importance within the indicators. An example is shown in this slide on how we go about calculating this weighted average index. Let's say in a dimension there are 2 indicators. Firstly, we have to calculate the weighted average of the indicator. So in this case, the mean of indicator 1 will be divided with the total mean of all of the indicators within the dimension, and this will provide us with the weighted average of the mean score for the indicators portion. To note, the mean score for dimension 1 will be derived from the second part of the questionnaire. Finally, with the weighted average of the indicator and the dimension mean being multiplied together, it will provide us with the weighted average index of each indicator, which then can be used in the later part of the study. As we have spoke about on the elimination of indicators and calculating the weighted average index, the last step of our methodology will be to evaluate the new list of indicators on Airport Sustainability Report. Hence, we have chosen 4 Airport Sustainability Report to apply our indicators and analyze their performance. These airports are Singapore Changi Airport, Kuala Lumpur International Airport, Hong Kong International Airport, and Incheon International Airport. To note, in this portion, 2 evaluations will be made for each airport. The first one, based on the full 48 indicators with equal weightage, followed by a second evaluation based on indicators that have passed the screening of expert opinions with differentiated weightage assigned. All 4 airports that were revealed in the previous slide were selected by the team on the following basis. Firstly, region. All 4 airports were chosen from countries within the Asian region. Secondly, based on the airport characteristics such as volume of passenger movement, aircraft movement, and air freight movement, which all 4 airports had similar statistics. Lastly, the review of the airport's country's sustainability culture, such as if they are active and have set visible sustainability goals and displayed clear progression. In all, the reason for finding airports with similar characteristics is to ensure a more consistent result with no influence from any other factors. Many of you might be thinking on how are we going to evaluate this selected airport sustainability report. The answer is by using a numerical rating scale with a set of 5 criteria which was established by the team. Upon reviewing the sustainability report of the airports in accordance to the GRI G4 Airport Operator Sector Disclosure, the team allocated a score for each indicator. The score is defined as for 0, which refers to the evaluated indicator is not present and has no relevant data in the report. For 1, it means that the evaluated indicator is present and have either qualitative or quantitative data available. For 2, it means that the evaluated indicator is present with both types of data available. However, to note, the data is reported in non-GRI standards. For 3, the evaluated indicator is present with both types of data available and is adhering to GRI standards but with only requirements being met. 4, the evaluated indicator is present with both types of data available, adhering to GRI standards with all the requirements satisfied and recommendations met. We have spoken on the methodology portion of the report. Now, I would like to bring you guys through the result analysis part of our study. Following the completion of the survey, a total of 19 indicators were eliminated, leaving 29 indicators to remain as highly relevant to airport sustainability. This has proven that the alternate hypothesis is true, as less than 48 indicators would be ideal to measure the reporting performance of an airport in terms of sustainability. This slide displays a real example of the weighted average index calculation being applied on the economic dimension. As economic performance has attained a mean score of 8.4, the weighted average was calculated with 8.4 being divided by the total sum of mean for all of the indicators within the economic dimension. Separately, the dimension mean was calculated and presented in percentage, which in this case is 31.50%. Hence, with the weighted average of the indicator and the dimension mean, the weighted average index was tabulated. In all, the result shows that the level of importance for each indicator does actually differ with some indicators. As for economic performance, you can see that the weighted average index is 0.08308, which means it requires an additional attention as compared to other indicators within the economic dimension. In the next few slides, I will bring you guys through the 48 indicators and 3-dimension mean score result that was consolidated from our survey. Starting off with economic dimension, there were no elimination of indicators as it was validated by the expert that all of these indicators were important and required the appropriate focus. Economic dimension is generally important to airports, as with a strong economic growth, it creates job opportunities, encourages investors, and grows consumer confidence on the airport. For environmental dimension, there were 3 indicators eliminated, which are supplier environmental assessment, environmental grievance mechanism, and intermodality. With the rise in environmental pollution globally, the remaining indicators were validated by experts as important because with environmental sustainability growth, it would increase the airport's efficiency in terms of operations. Take for example, the efficient use of the runways in an airport would increase the number of aircraft landing and taking off, which in return would enhance the amount of passenger movement in the airport. For social dimension, it is broken down into 4 parts due to the vast amount of indicators within the dimension. For labour practice and decent work indicators, 2 indicators were eliminated, and they are the supplier assessment for labour practices and labour practices grievance mechanisms. The remaining indicators were recognised as important because when good working conditions are established, it would inspire employees to become influential representatives of the airport, and when employees are happy to work, it will increase employees' retention within the organisation. In human rights performance indicators of the social dimension, mainly 5 indicators were eliminated, and they are child labour, freedom of association and collective bargaining, forces and compulsory labour, indigenous rights, and supplier human rights assessment. The remaining 3 indicators that receive respectable scores is important, as when an airport effectively implements anti-discrimination policy, it portrays ethical business practices of the organisation. Additionally, airports have to ensure that their suppliers also adopt such practices, as this would strengthen the airport's confidence among the community, employees, and the stakeholders. As for the society performance indicators, 4 indicators were eliminated, which are anti-competitive behaviours, compliance, supplier assessment for impacts on society, and grievance mechanisms for impacts on society. The remaining indicators were deemed as important due to the impact it has on the community. Therefore, airports have to participate in development programs to educate the community on its mitigation measures of the adverse impacts caused by its operations. Also, by having an anti-corruption agenda and educating all internal and external partners on this expectation, it will strengthen the airport's corporate principles and long-term viability. Finally, for product responsibility performance indicators, 4 indicators were eliminated, and they are product and services labeling, marketing communications, compliance, and service quality. Today, with the rise of cyber attacks on the organizations, it is important to respect customer privacy and take reasonable precautions to protect the security of any personal data the airport collect, store, process, or distribute. Moving over to dimensions, based on the results retrieved, the environmental pillar was voted with the highest percentage. The team believed that this is due to the importance and impact the pillar has on future generations. Despite a lower percentage given for social and economic dimension, the two dimensions still play an essential role in the assessment of airport sustainability performance. To sum up the result analysis, an example of the economic indicators difference in weightage before and after is shown in this slide. It clearly shows that not every indicator may have the same level of significance. Additionally, it may be a sign that airport needs to re-strategize their sustainability management if they have previously given significant emphasis to indicators that were eliminated. Next, I would like to pass the time over to Joanna.
Thank you, Navin. Moving on, I will be covering the discussion portion of this study. First, let's look at the reporting performance for all 4 airports. The results based on 48 indicators ranges from 44 to 60%, while the analysis of the 29 indicators has produced scores ranging from 51 to 68%. Among the 4 airports, Incheon International Airport has been identified to achieve the best reporting performance in both circumstances, based on GRI's mandatory requirements as well as the recommendations. The results have shown that airports are performing better, with up to a 19% increase in scoring. However, it has been observed that airports frequently emphasize on the economic and environmental aspects while neglecting or omitting the social aspect entirely. Airports could be performing better, possibly because these airports already have an existing framework in place to help them focus on indicators that are more crucial. In our study, the 4 chosen airports all have performed better. However, it is possible to have airports performing worse. We need to understand that a poor reporting performance with the reduced indicators does not mean that the airport has poor sustainability practices. There are possibilities that the airports are focusing on indicators that were either eliminated or given lesser weight after the screening and weighting exercise. Additionally, it is possible that sustainability efforts have been made without being reported or published in their reports. Next, moving into the frequencies of indicators. All the indicators that have scored at least 1 out of 4 have been considered in the frequency count. For the economic dimension, EC3, Indirect Economic Impact, did not get a full score of 4 as KL Airport did not address any associated indirect impacts. The results indicate that economic sustainability has been greatly emphasized as airports continue to focus on strategic operations that promote financial gain. A strong financial emphasis will aid airport to create an economically viable environment, potentially translating into employment opportunities and positive contribution to the country's growth. For the environmental dimension, all 4 airports have allocated adequate resources to address most of the indicators. This is done through yearly assessments in terms of usage of water, energy, materials, as well as its related impacts. Airports have also indicated a base year for comparison to track performance. The basis for comparisons will help airport in setting realistic sustainable goals and improving its sustainable efforts for the environment to minimize negative implications. The least reported indicators are EN1 and EN4, with only 2 airports reporting on it. These are areas that the airports can look into improving its reporting performance. We now look at the 4 subsegments of the social dimension. In relation to labor practices and decent work, most airports have addressed the key topics meticulously, such as hiring statistics, turnover rate, occupational health and safety, etc. However, LA2 was poorly articulated because very few airports have disclosed information on the required advance notice period before implementing operational changes that may have a significant impact on its employees. Airports are expected to provide reasonable notice and provisions for consultation and negotiation. The management's consideration of the employees' opinions will strengthen its relationships with the employees, helping to create a positive work environment, lower turnover, and limit operational disruptions. Within the human rights performance indicators, all 4 airports have reported none or undertaken minimal inputs in its sustainability reports. These indicators are crucial for the upkeep of human rights, as appropriate training for security personnel will assure their code of conduct towards third parties. Effective grievance procedures are also essential for bottom-up communication, creating a safe space for stakeholders and employees. For society performance, the most frequently reported indicators were SO1 and SO2, while none of the airports reported on SO3. There is no relevant data on the public policy and political contributions done. The airports will need to collaborate closely with the ministry to identify its contributions in order to transparently publicize such data. The transparency would grow the public's confidence in the airport and support their future initiatives, as they know it is not influenced by any third parties, hence minimal corruption. Between the 4 product responsibility performance indicators, PR4 was reported the least. PR4 is a critical indicator for airports as it concerns customer privacy, especially in the current climate where technology is used extensively. As mentioned by Navin, airports must respect customer privacy and take precautions to protect the security of any personal data involved. Airports should attempt to review more qualitative data on what are the measures and protocols in place to ensure customers' privacy. Any substantiated complaints or suspected breaches of data should be addressed with transparency and time sensitivity, which will help to improve its overall image and reputation in the long run. Apart from the reporting frequencies, we now look at average scores for all 4 airports for the indicators. We have pulled out a total of 14 out of 29 indicators that have achieved a score of 2 or lower. Of the 14 indicators, 7 of them have scored between 0 to 0.5, suggesting that these are the worst performing indicators, indicated by the pink fonts. The results suggest that there is a lot more work to be done, especially in the social dimension. Now, let's zoom in to look at the individual airports. First up, Singapore. Changi Airport has met a satisfactory number of indicators in both economic and environmental aspects. But of course, there are areas that could be improved, such as indirect economic impacts and procurement practices. As for environmental, a few areas requires more in-depth data such as water, effluents and waste, etc. Social was underperforming as there is a lack of quantitative data as well as negligence in some indicators. Among the 4 airports, Hong Kong has performed the best for economic aspect, addressing majority of the indicators thoroughly, except for a minor few that requires a little more focus as well, such as indirect economic impacts and procurement practices. Similar to Singapore, for environmental and social aspect, there is a need to focus on some of the indicators that were not addressed in detail and requires further improvement. KL Airport has met a satisfactory number of indicators in the economic and environmental dimensions. However, there are areas that requires KL Airport to kickstart its reporting. For the social aspect, there is a need to relook into its sustainable management as there are various indicators such as customer privacy that was not addressed at all in its reports. For Incheon Airport, it has the best overall performance. Environmental and social has met a satisfactory number of indicators and majority of the topics have been addressed in all 3 dimensions. Nonetheless, there are rooms for improvement for the reported indicators as some of them has limited data. It has been observed that there are common areas where all 4 airports are lagging in, especially in the social dimension. We have categorized the airports accordingly based on their overall reporting performance. Incheon has showcased the best reporting practices, scoring full marks for 44% of the indicators, hence given the title as the trendsetter. Its reporting standards have adopted in-depth research which sets them as the benchmark to the other airports. Hong Kong and Singapore has displayed quality reporting that has been ranked above average. However, both airports had gaps in their reporting standard for about 24% of the indicators, scoring 0. Hong Kong and Singapore would have to strengthen their social commitments and reporting, especially in the areas of labour practices and human rights. Finally, KL Airport has exhibited a quality of reporting below average, classified as the emerging reporter. KL Airport had gaps for 34% of the indicators, where poor reporting performance was distributed across all 3 dimensions. KL Airport should seek to strengthen its reporting progressively and holistically, prioritizing those with the highest weightage first. Next, I'll be passing my time to Joanne to provide the conclusion and recommendations of this study.
Thanks, Joanna. Next, I'll be concluding the presentation by giving a list of recommendations. The Airport Council International has incorporated the three pillars with operational efficiency, establishing the EONS framework, which stands for economic viability, operational efficiency, natural resource conservation, and social responsibility. EONS is the elaboration of the triple bottom line that GRI closely resembles, while considering one additional pillar revolving around the airport key operations. We recommend exploring the usage of EONS as a potential framework for evaluating airport sustainability. This can be done by establishing a set of indicators that is meaningful and relevant to the fourth pillar, operational efficiency. A follow-up study can be done to apply the suggested sustainable framework on small-sized airports or airports in other regions. Since the shortlisted indicators have already gained expert validation, airports should place emphasis on those that have a higher weightage regardless of their size. The results from smaller airports and airports in other regions may reveal more insights for frameworks of 29 weighted indicators. With a greater scale of evaluation, the results may uncover characteristics of specific regions which can be used for comparisons. For instance, sustainability culture, best practices, dimensions or indicators with weaker performance, and etc. From an expanded pool of samples, sustainability reporting trends can be observed within specific or cross regions. Moreover, ACI also can come into play by enforcing on having a standardized framework to all airports. In this case, GRI will be the best option. By establishing a reporting system with the use of GRI sustainability reporting framework, airports are able to compare their performance to that of their rivals and acquire an understanding of where they stand in the market. Next, providing detailed data-focused disclosures to ensure transparency between the reporters and investors. But last but not least, encourage countries' airports that have not started on their sustainability journey to act now, instead of letting the detrimental effects ruin their future generations. ACI Europe came out with a report on the sustainability strategy for airports. A recent document was published in 2021 by ACI. Airport operators can be encouraged to follow closely to these practices. As there is yet to be a document to be produced on the best reporting practices for airports, the team has considered to follow the European countries' sustainability reports. For example, Denmark, Sweden, France, and Switzerland, etc. This is back from the team's literature where sustainability reporting practices is influenced by the country the airport is operating in. An example would be Heathrow's sustainability report, where KPIs and targets were set to see how much improvements were done through the 3 years. The study evaluated the reporting performance through the sustainability and annual reports of 4 Asian airports. This is a limitation as not all airports disclose its information through only one channel. There could be other sources of information that may be publicized through media platforms. Secondly, only large airports were employed to examine the efficiency of the indicators and smaller-sized airports were not considered. This is a limitation as the analysis is based on the results from larger airports. There is a need to incorporate the research on airports with varying size, which will further demonstrate the efficiency of the indicators. In addition, the team was unable to pool a larger group of experts to access the initial 48 indicators due to the lack of industry connections. To produce a better and accurate and dependable score for the indicators, the survey could have included more industry experts. Finally, most airports in Asia were not involved in the evaluation because there were no individual sustainability reports publicized on the airport's website. In most scenarios, for countries with more than one airport, such as Japan, a consolidated report was publicized for all its major airports under the same airport operator. This prevents the analysis for an individual report to be executed. I did like to end off by re-emphasizing that sustainability reporting is essential to assess the airport's performance. Till date, airport organizations have no standardized framework for the measurement and reporting on sustainability. One should be put in place for sustainable development as it guides airports in monitoring their sustainability. Finally, it is a good opportunity for aviation regulators to collaborate in establishing a standardized framework that any airports may utilize. Governments also play a critical role in encouraging airports to measure and begin reporting on sustainability and establish it as a new norm. Thank you. If you have any questions, the team will be happy to answer them by dropping us an email or WhatsApp.